This is the Louie T Network. You are now officially in the lab room. It's that time again. It's that time again to go hard in the off season, cause we trying to win. We gon' go so hard, we don't take no days off. Hopefully one day it's all gonna pay off.
Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 2017 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where your man Louie T aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2017 NFL Draft using our baseball grading scale, single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series, as we cannot tell how these players are going to pan out. And I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. And so we will tally up grades, giving each player an individual score, apply bonuses when necessary, divide by the number of picks, and voila, you have your final grade. It's the you pick format. You guys are in total control over who's next in this series. Simply be the first commenter in the comment section once this video is uploaded to state two things in the comment section. The phrase, the word first, and, or excuse me, next. Next, the word next, and the team that you'd like to see next. So some examples would be Cardinals, next. Cards, next. Cards got next. You don't want to get too wordy because this thing is a split second, fraction of a second type of deal, photo finish, all right? I'm coming in and guys are on these videos within the first 3 seconds after it's uploaded. And so if you're up there trying to be creative with what you're typing in, you can get beat out by someone who's getting straight to the point with their team and the phrase next. So make sure you get your team in there and you're first. These videos are random in terms of when they come out. It's purposefully done that way to create some excitement. And so we'll see who's next up in the series. It's a free-for-all now. All of the winners of different things throughout the course of the year have been honored. Now it's up to you guys to decide who's next in this series. So let's jump into the team next up in the series, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we'll talk about their 2017 NFL Draft. Had a hell of an offseason in terms of acquiring talent. Now this is a team that feels like they were a couple of pieces away from making that playoff push. You look at this draft and what they did in the offseason, I'd say this is a team that looks like they're on the up and up in the NFC South division. And we're going to talk about their draft. It was a very abbreviated draft. They diagnosed and identified players as guys that they wanted to get in this draft. They went up, spent resources to get them, got in and got out. It's a 6-player draft, very clean. We're going to break it down quickly, and we're going to start in the first round. 19th overall selection, Alabama tight end, Otarius Jabari Howard. You know him as OJ Howard. That's their first selection in this draft. To me, absolute slam dunk. You know what this one is. Not going to break him down. I've already done so in the Draft Prospects 101 series. So if you're looking for a thorough breakdown of OJ Howard, go to my Draft Prospects 101 series. In the playlist section, it'll be under 2017 NFL Draft Prospects 101 series, or it'll be under the NFL Draft 2017 NFL Draft playlist as well. So go check that out. But this is a guy that immediately comes in, enhances their run game as a blocker. The best two-way tight end we've seen in the league in over a decade. It's not even close. I don't know if I've ever seen this combination of size, speed and athleticism and blocking ability all in one body. To be honest with you, we've seen dynamic pass catchers. We've seen guys that can block really well. I don't know if we've seen them all combined in one body like this. They don't make tight ends like this in college football anymore because it's more of a spread offense, and these tight ends aren't asked to block in line anymore. OJ Howard is a rare specimen, and for him to even fall to 19 was a steal in itself. And now you have two tight end sets with him and Cameron Brate. in this offense, not to mention all of the receivers that are going to be at Jameis Winston's disposal. And you can get a dynamic running game now. And I really don't love the stable of backs the Buccaneers have to take advantage of what they have in front of them, because now they have 2 tight ends that can block and catch the football and some explosive receivers on the edge. I would have loved to have seen them take a dynamic running back in this draft. They didn't do so, but nonetheless, you've got a dynamic pass catching threat at the tight end position that also is one of the better blockers as he steps foot into the league at the tight end position already in O.J. Howard. In the first round, 19th overall selection, Alabama tight end O.J. Howard is hit hard. He's hit deep. You can put him on the board. Yes! A home run for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the first round with tight end O.J. Howard. This is a no-doubter, a great weapon for Jameis Winston in the passing game, but an even better weapon as a guy that can create some rushing lanes in the run game. Let's go to the second round selection of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 50th pick overall. Texas A&M safety Justin Evans is the selection. Start with his pros. Good length and athleticism at 6 feet, 199 pounds. This guy's got a pretty long, if you look at him, pretty long wingspan, 32-inch arms. So this is a guy that you can see him make plays. And there's a particular play that comes to mind when you think about this guy's length and athleticism. It's the pick against UCLA, which was just a phenomenal pick, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But in terms of athleticism, 4'5'8" guy, so he can move a little bit. 41-inch vert. You saw it on that play that I referenced already, that UCLA pick, and a 10'7" broad, or excuse me, 10'9" broad. So this is a guy that is highly athletic, can move around the field. And speaking of moving around the field, the next pro, fluidity in space. When you got a guy that is a single high free safety, you want him to be comfortable out in space. You want him to be able to flip his hips, change directions, be able to kind of stop and redirect, and be able to turn and run and be able to just be fluid out in space. And that's, to me, what Justin Evans is, because you never know which side of the field you're going to have to turn and run. You never know when you're going to have to try to cut a guy off and undercut a route, maybe get your hands on the football. You just need to be comfortable. Route combinations are coming at you. You got to be able to see a lot of different things in the field and react to them accordingly. And sometimes you can't waste motion. You can't waste steps if you're going to get somewhere in the proper amount of time. So I think his fluidity in space allows him to be a single high free safety and allows you to do some different things. Maybe you want to bring an 8th defender in the box. This guy's more than capable of holding his own as the only defender back at the safety position. Solid range and zone matching concepts. So what you will find with safeties that are really good in this league, especially in the coverage game and that aspect of their game, is that they do a really good job. And I talked about his range. I talked about his fluidity in space. That allows him to have a little bit of range. He's not the fastest guy in the world, okay? He's not Malik Hooker. He's not Adams. He's not one of these elite level athletes at the safety position. However, he does have enough athleticism to go sideline to sideline. Now, will he show up to the party a little tardy? Yeah, he'll get there a little bit late, but he has enough athleticism and range to get from the hash to the outer numbers. So I feel comfortable in him getting there. I saw a number of instances where he got there just in time, which if you're on time, sometimes you're late. But if you're on time, for the most part, you can get away with getting there and either getting your hand on the football or dislodging it away from a defender. And this guy's physical, brings a big physical heavy stick when he's coming to hit a receiver. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But zone matching concepts is an interesting dynamic for safeties, because I see a lot of guys in this league that aren't comfortable in zone coverage with guys running through their zone. And you see this with not just safeties, but corners as well, where guys are like really fixated, and linebackers to a certain degree as well, even though I don't hold them to the same standard that I do secondary members. But nonetheless, you'll see guys that they see a player running through their zone and they'll just watch them, and he'll say, oh, well, he's not in my zone anymore, so I'm just going to let him go. And they'll allow receivers to uncover and be wide open. And there's something to be said about zone matching. If a guy comes into your zone, it's your responsibility to run with him until you pass him off to the next defender in the zone. Don't allow a guy to run through your zone, and once he leaves your general vicinity, just say, well, he's not in my zone anymore. Pass him off correctly to the next defender, or else he will be wide open. I'm not saying totally vacate your space, but again, if you look around and there's no other route in your area, in your general vicinity, there's no one running a route behind you, somebody trying to clear. Okay, obviously, if it's 3rd and 9 and there's a drag route in front of you, a shallow crosser, you don't need to come up and react to that and allow someone to run a 12-yard dig behind you and make it easy for the quarterback to complete an 11-yard pass for a first down. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if you look around and there's nothing going on behind you and a guy's running a 5-yard stop route in front of you, you need to react to that and make sure that he doesn't have 6 yards of space after he catches a 5-yard stop route on 3rd and 9 to run up the field and get 10 in a first down. Okay, if a guy's coming through your zone and he's running a crossing route with the ability to read, and a lot of these routes now are option routes. They're choice routes where if the defender is doing this, you do that. So it's an if-then type of scenario. You want to be able to react to that route. Don't allow this guy to run through your zone and then you just allow him to be wide open because you didn't run with him because you're saying, hey, that's not my zone. Make sure you match him within the zone until he moves on to the other player so that he's not wide open. And I think Justin Evans does a really good job of zone matching. And you watch him against UCLA, you watch him in some of these games, Tennessee, he does a really good job of zone matching. And I think that's something else that's a big pro for him in his game. Tremendous ball skills. The pick against UCLA is just that. And not only was it a phenomenal play itself, but you got to think about the timing of that pick. This is a game clinching pick, essentially, is what this amounts to. The end of the ball game, you need a stop. This man climbs the ladder as high as you could possibly climb it. That 41-inch vert was put to the test, and he proved that he legitimately can get up there at 41 inches. Uses that length that I talked about, all of the different components of what makes him a good football player from an athletic standpoint was on full display on that one particular play as he climbs the ladder, snatches the football out of it. And again, I don't think Josh Rosen expected him to be able to get that high and make that play. I think he totally disregarded Justin Evans' ability to make a play on the football on that particular play. And wow, did he make him pay for that. That was a hell of a pick. Tremendous ball skills. Had 4 interceptions in 2016. The guy can make plays on the football. The next thing, and I think this is another big thing with him, and it's a gift and a curse for Justin Evans, is his physicality. He plays with an aggressive mindset. That's the next pro. This is a guy that's going to hit you. I think a lot of people remember him in 2015 for a couple of shots. One in particular on big Alabama running back Derrick Henry, where we didn't see Henry go backwards very often. There are only 2 instances where I can remember someone hitting Derrick Henry and him going backwards. One was when he was hit by safety Keanu Neal of the Florida Gators. The other was when he was struck by Justin Evans. And there's a big difference between Keanu Neal, who's a 15, 20 pound safety, and a guy like Justin Evans who's shy of 200 pounds. And to see this guy come up and lay the wood on a big 245 pound Derrick Henry opened some eyes. I know it opened mine. So that's when he first got on my radar last year, when he went up and he hit Derrick Henry. And you see that with him. He's a physical guy. He's looking to come up. He's not afraid. He's not shy. When he shoots his gun, he's coming full bear, and he's looking to tear somebody's head off. Now, there's a gift and a curse to that. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but make no mistake about it. The man is coming to lay the wood. He's coming to hit somebody and anybody can get it at any time with Justin Evans. And then finally, special teams value. He's a guy that returned kickoffs at Texas A&M. So if you need that, and I don't think the Bucs will, but if you need that in a pinch, this guy can offer you a little bit of special teams value from that aspect and realm. So you go from that to his cons. And this is a guy that, to me, his stature doesn't meet the requirements for a guy that plays with the level of physicality that he does. So to me, stature and physical play is the first con, because this is a guy that at 6 feet, 199 pounds, so essentially 200 pounds. I don't know if he can stand up to the rigors of the NFL game with the way that he plays. He plays with a reckless abandon. Remember how physical Bob Sanders was? Wasn't a big guy, but he was extremely physical, but his body broke down because he wasn't big enough physically to withstand that kind of contact on a consistent basis. I saw him hit a guy in the Tennessee game, and he laid a vicious shot, and the receiver popped up, used his shoulder, and he was the one that took the worst of that shot. He was the one that took the brunt of that shot. While the receiver's up pointing first down, Justin Evans is on the ground like, God damn, that hurt. And so I just don't know how long he'll be able to last with the physical style and mentality that he has at that stature. I don't see him getting a ton bigger than what he already is. So it'd be interesting to see if he's able to have a long-lasting career in the league with the way that he plays the game. The next con is he's an over-aggressive guy. Over-aggressiveness is the next con. Look, this guy is one of those players that play action fake. You probably can get him to bite on it. Down on play action fake, because he's looking to come up and be an enforcer in the run game. He's looking to be physical. He's a guy that if he thinks you're running an out route, he wants to jump that out route. And if it's out and up, you got him. Okay, he's a guy that can be over aggressive. And so I think there are going to be opportunities for play action fake and things of that nature, double moves to beat this guy in one-on-one coverage as the only single high safety back in the defense. And then finally, the final con is one that I kind of stole from Mike Mayock, and I think it's a great way to describe Justin Evans as a football player in a nutshell. He says he's an all-or-nothing football player. Now, to me, that speaks volumes, and to me, it's the perfect way to describe Justin Evans in a nutshell. If you were looking for a phrase or a term to describe him as a football player, it's all or nothing. All right, that's the mentality that he has, and to me, that's a con, because at the safety position, you want consistency more so than anything else. This guy's got boom or bust, and not in terms of a prospect, but just in terms of an individual play. Either he can make a huge play for you, or he can give up a huge play. This guy will miss an inordinate amount of tackles because he's looking to rip your head off. But there's something to be said about just getting a guy on the ground. That's why I love Jamal Adams, because Jamal Adams, he wants to tear your head off, but he knows there's a time and a place for everything. If I got to come in there and grab you by the ankles and get you down on 4th and 2 out in the flats, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not looking to shred you and come after your head and get on Sports Center to make a play. I'm looking to get you on the goddamn ground short of the sticks. And Justin Evans, to me, sometimes isn't concerned about down and distance or just getting a guy on the ground. He's looking to tear your head off. And I saw him miss a ton of tackles. The first 2 games I watched, the UCLA game, for all of the good plays he made, he had 2 picks in that UCLA game. For all the good plays he made in that game, there were a ton of missed tackles. I watched him against Tennessee. There were a ton of tackles. These are early games in the regular season, missing tackles left and right. He's a guy that's going to come up and, like I said, be aggressive in the run game. What if it's not run, it's pass, but you've already taken 4 steps towards the line of scrimmage? He's an all or nothing defender. And to me, that he's an all or nothing player. And he misses tackles. He's over aggressive. He can make plays, but he'll also give them up in the same breath. But nonetheless, he's a tremendous athlete. Love his physical mindset. He wants to hit. He wants to be a part of the action. Ball skills. He's got everything you need. Okay, and in the 2nd round, 50th overall selection, Texas A&M safety Justin Evans for me is a triple. I love this pick for the Buccaneers because they desperately needed a guy at the safety position that could come in, be an athlete, and help them kind of reconfigure what it is they have going on at the safety position. I think Justin Evans is a guy that can do that for them at the next level. You go to their third round pick, and it's the 84th overall selection in the 2017 NFL Draft. Penn State wide receiver Chris Godwin is the selection. And a big shout out to my man Ree, who's a huge Buccaneers fan. And it was funny as we were doing all of the videos leading up to the draft, including my weekly draft videos on Wednesdays in the draft room. He brought it up one video. He said, man, Chris Godwin, boy, he looks like a really clean receiver, man. He does everything well. I really like this guy. And he kept bringing Chris Godwin up. And I said, that's nice, Ree. That's really nice. Maybe your Buccaneers would get him. That's what I thought in my head. But I said, oh, that's great, Ree. You know, Chris Godwin is a pretty solid receiver. And I could tell he really liked him. And kudos to him. He liked him so much, his Buccaneers went out and took him. So let's talk about Chris Godwin. Let's start with his pros. Size. 6'1", 209 pounds, good size right there at the receiver position. Like I said, these receivers aren't getting any smaller, and he fits in the mold of today's NFL wide receiver from a size standpoint. Great long distance speed. I thought he was impressive at the combine. Ran a 4.42. I didn't think he was going to run that fast. I thought he would run in the high 4.4s, like or low 4.4s. I don't really know how you say it. I thought he would run more in the 4.48, 4.49 range, barely running a sub 4.5. He damn near hit 4.4 flat. So the guy can run long distances. We'll talk about his speed and what it means for his game a little bit later on in depth. But in terms of long, once he builds it up, once he gets going, this guy can run past some defenders, and you actually see that on tape. Outstanding hands. Love his hands. He's got great hands. You throw him the football, he's going to catch it, which leads me to my next pro. Catches it in traffic. I think the epitome of what he is and what he can be as a football player was the Rose Bowl game versus USC. I thought he was just on full out display. And I think a lot of people didn't really know who he was and was introduced to Chris Godwin in that game. But I mean, if you've been watching Penn State football for any amount of time, and I've been fascinated with them just because of Saquon Barkley over the last 2 years. But nonetheless, if you've been watching Penn State football, then you know Chris Godwin has been playing good football for them his entire collegiate career. And so that Rose game to me was just the epitome of who he is. And it was great to see the culmination of his career in that one final game to really start to generate some buzz about who he is as a football player, because he's a really good wide receiver. And his hands in that game, outstanding. There's a catch where he goes behind, the ball is behind him. Mitch McSorley throws it slightly behind him. He reaches back, one hand in traffic. There are 3 USC defenders right around him and snags that. If he doesn't get his hand on that ball, there's a chance that thing gets picked off. And he reaches back, and this is 3rd down and 9, folks. He reaches behind him, one hand, corrals it, and gets up the field and gets the 1st down, picks up 10 yards on 3rd and 9. I mean, his hands are outstanding, and you see it particularly in that game. But if you've watched Chris Godwin, you know he can catch the football. Excellent route running ability. I think that there are some things that he's going to struggle with at the next level. To me, route running isn't one of them. I think he runs really good routes. The problem is he's not as quick, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But in terms of route running ability, he will break you off. I watched him break off Monte Nicholson, safety out of Michigan State, with a beautiful, nasty, and vicious, flavor delicious double move on an out and up. And that out looked legit. I'm not going to lie to you. If I was Monte, probably would have been on that myself. And he came up for that out. He went up, game over, touchdown. And so this guy will break you off if you're not careful. I think he does a really good job of running routes. Fights for 50-50 balls. I don't think his leaping ability is one that we'll be talking about for years to come. But he will fight for a 50-50 ball. You saw it in the Rose Bowl game where the ball was just thrown up, 50-50, go and get it. The defender for USC did a great job of knocking it away, but he didn't knock it away. He knocked it up in the air, and Godwin stayed with it because he jumped in the air to fight for it, and he was able to bobble it a couple of times, catch it, and run for about a 60-yard touchdown. So he'll fight for the 50-50 ball. Not always going to come down with them, but he'll contest and he'll fight, and he'll try to go up and make a play for you as a quarterback. The next pro is he's got the THG gene. And what that is for me is toughness, hustle, and grit. He's got that THG gene in his body. And I love that in a receiver. I love that in any football player, to be honest with you, but especially me being a guy that pays very close attention to the receiver position. I love to see receivers compete with toughness, hustle, and grit. And this is a guy that'll go over the middle of the field. To me, toughness, hustle, and grit, that THG gene for me just means the guy will do all of the dirty work, all of the stuff that other guys don't want to do. He'll get his hands dirty. He's not afraid to get in the fray. He'll block. This is a guy that's digging out safeties and linebackers in the run game. They're asking him to come down and crack, and you'll see him crack often. I mean, every big run to the outside towards the right side of the football field, when Saquon Barkley bounces it out, I can all but assure you there is a Chris Godwin crackdown block to seal that edge that allows Saquon Barkley to get to the outside and make a big run. On the big run, right in the start of the second half by Saquon Barkley, one of the most beautiful runs of 2016. If you're watching a running back utilize all of their skill set, how many cutbacks on that run, for him to just use that acceleration and burst and to be able to use different speeds to change speeds, to know when to turn it up, to when to deaccelerate, then turn it back up and accelerate and get away. That to me was the most beautiful run of 2016 of any running back. But nonetheless, who's on that play running down the field 60 yards to escort him to the end zone and get 2 key blocks to help him get in there? None other than Chris Godwin. Who's making the catch on 3rd and 9 with one hand in between 3 USC defenders to get the first down and move the sticks? Chris Godwin. Who's digging out safeties and linebackers in the run game? Chris Godwin. He's got the toughness, the hustle, the grit gene, and that's why I feel like that THG gene is what epitomizes a guy like Chris Godwin. Finally, you move on to his final 2 pros. He's a WWF effort, will work for food. Like I said, he'll dig out safeties and linebackers in the run game. He does I think he's a smart football player. He will block a guy up until the point where he realizes, all right, I got to let him go. I can't hold him or else I'm going to negate what Saquon Barkley's about to do with this carry. So I'm just going to let this guy go at this point. Does a really good job of blocking without holding and getting himself into trouble. He will work for food. You want touches? You want to eat? You better go out and work for food, and he'll do that in the run game. And then heavy 2-year production over the last 2 years. He was outstanding at Penn State. 2 years ago, over 1,100 yards and 5 touchdowns. This past year, the yards were down, but the touchdowns were way up. 982 yards, so just shy of 1,000, but you're talking about a guy that had 11 touchdowns versus 5 a year ago. So this guy was phenomenal over the last 2 years. You're talking about over 2,000 yards receiving and damn near 20 touchdowns in a span of 2 years with 2 different quarterbacks. Chris Godwin getting it done at Penn State. You move on to his cons, however. This guy lacks quickness and suddenness, and I think that's what's going to hurt him at the next level. Potentially now, this is why I think he's gonna excel, and a lot of people question him. He struggled against Ohio State, Michigan, and Wisconsin, the 3 best, arguably the 3 best teams that they faced defensively all season long. He struggled in those 3 games. Okay, I don't think he eclipsed 4 catches in any of those games. I don't think he exceeded 40 or 50 yards in any of those games. He struggled, okay, to say the least, but what you have to understand is in those games, this is not a guy that is very quick. I talked about he's an excellent route runner, but what happens when a guy doesn't fear your speed or your quickness, because he's a build-up speed guy. We'll talk about that in a little bit. What happens when these accelerated and these great athletes, these extravagant guys at the cornerback position, get in your face and use length to offset anything you do at the line of scrimmage in terms of getting off the ball, don't allow you to get into that speed that I talked about. And they challenge you because they don't respect your quickness and they are in your hip pocket. You know, you're talking about a Marshawn Lattimore. You're talking about a Garyon Conley. These are first-round, first-rate corners. You're talking about Channing Scribbling, who I think we're going to be talking about as a first-round corner in a year or 2 from now. You're talking about the Wisconsin defense with guys that are in your face challenging you. These are guys, Jordan Lewis at Michigan. These guys aren't afraid of a Chris Godwin. And so they got in his face, they got in his hip pocket, and he wasn't able to really create separation in those games. But If you actually watch the games, I thought he could have been more productive if there were better throws, especially the Michigan game. I thought he was open a couple of times, even drew a PI. So he was impactful in that game despite not having a bunch of catches. But nonetheless, that's something that I think he may struggle with. But again, at Tampa, he's not going to see the number 1 corner. He's not going to see the number 2 corner, okay? You got Mike Evans, and you got D-Jax out there. You're getting 3rd, 4th corner coverage, buddy. He's going to eat that alive. And so I love where he is with this football team. And then finally, he's a build-up speed guy. So what that means is it's going to take him a few steps to get up to top speed. That 4.42 is great, but you're not going to see it in the first 3 steps that he takes. He's not quick, like I said earlier. He's a guy that if you want him to get up to that 4.42 speed, you're going to have to allow him to get up the field. And that's that play action fake is for. And in this Buccaneers offense, Jameis Winston, one of the better play action fake down the field throwers of the football. If they can get a semblance of a run game going with D-Jax on one side, teams scared to death about what he does, and Mikey on the other side, this guy in the slot or wherever he is on the field could be a big winner in this Buccaneers offense. I love this pickup because I don't think there are many 3rd or 4th corners that can hang with Chris Godwin and what he brings to the table in the 3rd round, 84th overall selection. Penn State wide receiver Chris Godwin for me is a triple. Love this selection for the Buccaneers. Love where he is and what he's going to be asked to do in this offense. I think he's going to fit in perfectly with what the Buccaneers are going to ask him to do initially coming in to this football team. You move on to the next 3rd round pick. Buccaneers traded back into the back end of the 3rd round to make this selection. 107th pick overall. LSU linebacker Kendall Beckwith is the pick. 6'2", 243 pounds is where we start with him. Size and physicality. He's a throwback linebacker in a league where linebackers are getting smaller and smaller every single year. This is a guy that to me looks like one of those 1990s linebackers. They don't really make them like this anymore, or these types of guys don't excel in the league generally. They're 2-down guys that you're not going to see on the field in passing situations. He doesn't offer you much in the way of pass rushing either, so or even as a blitzer. So this is a guy that, to me, plays with the level of physicality and has the size necessary to be a dominant run stuffer on 1st and 2nd downs. Closing burst. This was surprising because I don't consider Kendall Beckwith to be a great athlete. But yet, once he gets outside and he's tracking down, and it doesn't really matter, receiver, tight end, running back, he gets outside into the flats. There's a burst that he has that allows him to track down just about, and you're like, man, this receiver can run. And Kendall Beckwith is not only hanging with this guy, he's tracking him down and getting him onto the ground, which I really didn't understand how this was occurring over and over and over and over again. But yet he found a way to do it. So there's a burst there with Kendall Beckwith when it comes to closing the gap between him and a offensive player with the football. Play diagnosis and awareness is the next pro. It's a very smart football player. Does a really good job of deciphering whether this is a pass or a run. He's not hasty in his decision making. He's not one of these guys, oh, I'm not fast, so I got to shoot my gun and get in the backfield. Oh, it's play action fake. Now that tight end coming over the middle of the field, now that receiver coming over the middle of the field has all the room he could ask for to catch the football. He's one of these guys, pre-snap, that's sitting there, and then as you snap the ball, he's on his toes, he's bouncing like this, and he reads out run or pass before he takes off. And so really does a good job of play diagnosis, very aware of what's going on around him. That's something that I've really picked up on with Kendall Beckwith, watching him on tape. Plays under control, that's the next pro, and I kind of really alluded to that in talking about him with play diagnosis and whatnot. This is a guy that just plays at a speed where he's not being rushed. He doesn't, like I said, doesn't make hasty decisions. He's not a guy on the football field that you're going to trick or speed up. I mean, they went up against countless teams that wanted to change the tempo, that wanted to speed him up. You watch him in against Alabama in 2015, and they're going no huddle with Coker at quarterback, and he's still kind of processing everything in this flow of the game. You're not going to speed this guy up. It's almost like a basketball player that has the ball in his hands, that plays at a pace where you're like, you're not going to speed this guy up. You're not going to force him into turnovers. Even though you may be pressuring him with the basketball, you're not going to speed him up and get him to turn it over. He's going to play at his own pace. I feel like that's the same thing you get out of Kendall Beckwith. You're not going to make this guy make a mistake because you're trying to speed up the pace. He plays under control and he knows what's going on around him. Takes great pursuit angles. This is another thing that when a guy plays under control, you see it. He takes great pursuit angles to the football. There's nothing worse than a guy that has the angle, but takes a poor pursuit angle to the football. So instead of being in front of the play, making a play, he's coming from behind, which gives that offensive football player the ability, if he's got the speed to do so, to beat the angle now. If you take a proper angle, doesn't matter how slow you are, you take the proper angle, most likely you're going to have at least an opportunity to knock a guy out of bounds. You're going to have at least an opportunity to get a finger on him and see if you can't get him to trip up. But if you take a bad angle and you're not the greatest athlete, you're in trouble. Kendall Beckwith understands pursuit angles. Can't tell you how many times I watched him go out into the flats and take a looping angle to get out there. Don't take this beeline, straight direct route to a guy coming full speed at 110 miles an hour like your hair's on fire, and then all the guy does is take one hard step inside and all of a sudden you go flying by. Now you're just giving up 8 yards on a hitch. If you come under control, which is what Kendall Beckwith does, you're going to get out there, the guy's going to start trying to do all of this. Now here comes another defender to help you out. Next thing you know, it's a 1 yard gain or it's a no gain. And so he just, to me, does everything the right way in terms of coming up and being sound in his technique. Also, consistent collegiate production. Game in, game out. You knew what you were going to get out of Kendall Beckwith. Was he a guy that was going to jump off the screen at you and be a 20 tackle, 2 sacks, interception, or 2 pass deflection type of guy? No. But you knew you were going to get anywhere from 8 to 11, maybe even 13 tackles in any given game. He was going to be where he was supposed to be when he was supposed to be there. On 4th and 1, on 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, he was going to be a guy that was going to try to get into the backfield and make a tackle and force the other team off the field. So you knew what you were getting out of Kendall Beckwith. Really solid in that. The consistency that he played with over the life of his collegiate career, there's something to be said about that. You go from all of those pros to his cons. Lacks true athleticism or redirect. He does not change directions well. He's a high-cut linebacker in terms of his size at 6'2". Sometimes he plays a little too high, but more importantly, he doesn't change directions well. If you get him flowing one direction and then that running back sticks his foot in the ground and cuts it back, Kendall Beckwith can't stop on a dime and turn and redirect in a different direction. He just struggles in that facet. If you get him going one way on bootleg and he guesses wrong, you got him. He's not going to be able to stop. If you go this way and the quarterback shows football and he thinks it's a run, and that quarterback pulls that football back and then rolls out the other way, and that tight end's coming back across Kendall Beckwith's face, he's done. He can't stop, change directions, and get after that tight end. That tight end's got to step on him. He's not going to catch up. So he does not redirect well. He's not a great athlete yet. He's got really good closing speed and burst, but he's not a great athlete. You can run by Kendall Beckwith. That is for certain. Also, doesn't take, for a guy that is as big and physical as he is, I was really disappointed in how he took on blocks at the second level, or lack thereof. There was a lot of ole going on at the second level where, you know, the fullback or a big guard or a center would get to the second level and he wants no part of these guys. He's going around blocks. He's pushing guys down, and he's just not being physical, and he's opened up some creases and some rush lanes for guys. I'm like, hey, even if you're not going to make the play, you're a big guy. You're 245 pounds. Go up there, put a hat on a hat, and make somebody else come up and clean it up. But don't allow these guys to have free access to the second level. And I just felt like I watched him against Wisconsin, and I'm like, there's too many times where I feel like he doesn't want any of these second level linemen who are coming off a double team and trying to get to the second level. He's just running around guys. And What are you doing, dude? You're too big for that. Go in there and do something. And you saw that continuously on tape where he just, that second level, you're just like, for a guy that is explosive, shoots his gun and gets in the backfield and is physical at that first wave, when he's playing on his heels a little bit, he's not comfortable taking on blockers, and that's a little disconcerting for a guy that I think is a two-down linebacker in this league. You can't, on second down, give up 6 yards because you don't want to take on a blocker. It just baffled me watching him do that over and over again. And then finally, torn ACL at the end of 2016 for a guy that was a limited athlete as it was. You tear your ACL, and again, ACLs are like Tommy John surgery in the NFL. Guys come back from them stronger than ever, so I don't really worry about that necessarily, but he wasn't a great athlete to begin with. What does this do to his athleticism? We'll see. I thought Kendall Beckwith was a third-round pick before the injury. After the injury, I don't really know if I love him at this spot because I really don't see him as a two-down, or as a three-down linebacker in this league. He doesn't get pressure on the quarterback. He's not a great blitzer. I don't know if you want this guy running with anybody out of the backfield. That being said, in the third round, 107th pick overall, LSU linebacker Kendall Beckwith for me is a double. I think he's a solid pick, but he doesn't move the needle for me. I think he's a solid rotational linebacker, but I don't think he's a guy you want to leave on the field on third downs. But if the Buccaneers are looking for a physical enforcer inside at the linebacker position, he could potentially be that, but I'd love to see him take on that blocker coming off of that double team, or a guy that's coming out to the second level to come get him. I'd like to see him be a little bit more physical with that guy. But we'll see what happens. You go on to the Bucs' next pick, 5th round, 162nd pick overall. Boise State running back Jeremy McNichols is the pick. To me, another one of these bowling ball backs out of Boise State. I wasn't in love with this pick. I thought the Buccaneers needed more of a difference maker at the running back position. To me, this is not it, but let's break him down anyway. 5'9", 214 pounds. He's got some athleticism. He's a 4.49 guy. He's got some quicks. So to me, his athleticism is more around the quicks that he has more so than any kind of speed that you're going to see from him. He's got some vision. All right, you'll see him set up some things and some cutbacks. There was one game against UNLV that jumps out at me. He had like 4 touchdowns in that game, and one of them was really impressive. There was a nice run in there where he cuts it back twice on some guys that are out blocking for him, and does a beautiful job of cutting back, using those blocks effectively to get out in space and get into the end zone. So has some really good vision. He has some pass catching ability. I don't think he's a guy that you split out and do things with. He's no Matt Forte. He's not one of these dynamic guys that you split out like a Le'Veon Bell per se, but he catches the football. I think he's a guy that they did a lot of little cute things with him, screens and shovel passes. But I don't see him as a guy that's running a choice route out of the backfield. But that's not to say he can't. I just didn't see that on tape. But he caught the football quite a bit, so I'd like to believe he could do that at the next level if need be. He can pass protect. For a guy 5'9", 214, I saw him stick his nose in there quite a bit. Now again, he's 5'9", 214, so just know that if a guy gets him going full head of steam, that's 6'1", 230, comes in full head of steam, he may be able to bulldoze him. But I saw him hold his own, man. Pushing guys around the pocket, cutting guys at the right time. I thought he mixed it up well. I thought he protected his ass off, so I'll give him credit there. Utilizes blockers that are available. I don't think he sets up blocks well. I'll talk about that a little bit later on. But I do think when blockers are available, he does do a good job of utilizing those blockers to get up the field and get more yardage out of a run. Special teams value, this is a guy that returned kicks early in his career and can do that for you, and I think that's something the Buccaneers need to explore with him to get the most value out of this pick. And also, heavy collegiate production for this guy. He came in, split some time with Jay Ajayi in his early Boise State career. Over the last 2 years, this guy's amassed over 3,000 yards rushing, had a ton of touches, over 300 touches last year, just running the ball. Not to mention another 40 or so receiving out of the backfield. So this is a guy that had a heavy workload, but heavy collegiate production over the last 2 years in particular out of the Boise State backfield. So this is a guy that you can use as a guy to catch it out of the backfield, to run it. And he's not afraid to go in between the tackles. He's definitely not afraid to bounce it outside, as we'll talk about here in a second. Speaking of which, let's get to his cons. And the first con is he's quicker than fast. I don't think there are going to be many times you're going to see that 4.49 speed necessarily. If he gets out in the open, he can run. But again, I think he's much more quicker than he is fast. And that's something you'll see with him on tape. Not patient enough to the line of scrimmage. To me, he gets the football and he's not allowing blocks to develop. He's not setting anything up. He's just getting the football. If there's a hole, there's a crease, he'll hit it. All right, but he's not getting to the line of scrimmage and patient to set things up, allow blocks to develop so that he can cut off of them. He's just bulldozing his way into the line, and then a lot of times what you'll see is he'll go in and he'll get a 4-yard gain. He'll get what's there, but there won't be extra that he'll get, and then there'll be times where he'll just run into the back of his own lineman because he didn't allow things to develop. Then he wants to bounce it outside, and then that's my next con, is he tries to bounce it outside too much. And you'll see a lot of negative plays there where he'll run backwards 6 yards to lose 2 yards. And you're like, if you would have had more patience going to the line of scrimmage, you wouldn't have had to endure a 2-yard loss in that play. And you wouldn't have had to run backwards 5 yards just to lose 2 yards on the play. I think he bounces it too much. He tries to do too much. If he's just a little bit more patient to the line of scrimmage, I think he wouldn't have that problem as much. Lacks elusiveness. You won't see him juke anyone on tape. You won't see him make anybody miss off of just sticking his foot in the ground and double sticking the guy. There's no juking the draws off of nobody. There's no breaking of the ankles. He's a guy that's looking to just bowl his way wherever he's going. He's a little bowling ball, at 5'9", 214, and he acts as such. He's not a guy looking to make anybody miss. Much like Doug Martin, Doug isn't breaking anybody off. Doug is looking to, power his way through guys, and when he gets a chance, try to run by guys, but you're not going to get much in the way of him making guys miss with elusiveness out in space. And then finally, the biggest con for me, he fumbles the damn football too damn much. 8 fumbles in the last 2 years, and I watched like 4 or 5 games, and I saw like 4 fumbles in those 4 or 5 games. And it's just him being really negligent with the football. There isn't a situation. One time he's at the goal line trying to get in. He's got the ball up here and the guy comes and puts his helmet right on the ball. Ball comes. You can't fumble at the 1. Are you crazy? You need to wash your face, get your mind right if you think that's a good idea. There's another time where he just gets hit and he's just spinning and the ball just pops out. I'm like, bro, no one even reached in the cookie jar. What are you doing? So the ball hit the turf way too many times for my liking. I'm not comfortable with that many fumbles in 2 years. And I didn't watch enough games to see that many fumbles, but yet I saw at least 4 fumbles in the games that I watched. That made me uneasy. But nonetheless, in the 5th round, 162nd pick overall, Boise State running back Jeremy McNichols for me is a double. I'm not enamored with this pick. I think he's another back that you just throw in the mix. This was a draft to get a difference-making back. And you didn't do that. And I would have loved to have seen you do that instead of trading up for Kendall Beckwith. Keep your 4th round pick and get a better back in this draft instead of getting Jeremy McNichols. But that's just me. Let's move on to your final pick in this draft. 7th round, 223rd pick overall, USC defensive lineman Stevie Tui Kolavatu. All right, and one of the easier hard names you're going to find, okay? Stevie Tui Kolavatu. Big Stevie T is what they call him, man. So if you don't know how to say Tui Kolavatu, then just call him Stevie T. All right. Pros. Size, 6'1", 331 pounds is a big man. All right. And with that size comes strength. And this is a guy that will push the pocket, which is the next pro. So I combine the two. Really strong. You'll see this guy, watch him against Alabama, and he's just dominating these guards on the interior, pushing them back. They double team him, and that's when they get him to stop moving the pocket. You'll see this guy push the pocket very often. He's very good. And again, at 6'1", he's got instant leverage. You're talking about guards that are 6'4", 6'5", 6'3". This guy's 6'1", and he's coming up, and he's getting underneath these pads. So he pushes the pocket, eats up space and double teams. That's the next pro. This guy's just big man at 331 pounds. He's just in the way. He's a big wall, big mass. And then he's a guy that will take on double teams and still be hard to move. You ever heard the song, It Takes Two? It takes two to make a thing go right. It takes two to block Stevie T in the run game. If you really want to get him out of the way, you're going to need two blockers. If you block him one-on-one now, he's not a guy with a Paul Doom, which if he had a Paul Doom, to me, he's without a doubt no worse than a 5th round pick because he would have more of an impact. But still, you know, one-on-one, this guy moves the pocket. He gets to the football. So you need to block him with 2 defenders if you want to get him out of the way in the run game. Swim move. He doesn't use it often enough, but it's effective when he does use it. Again, he's not a great athlete, so he's not going that far with it. But again, swim move is there, and it is something that he can reach in his back pocket and pull out every now and again. He's a vacuum tackler. To me, what that means is simply, if he gets close enough, he's gonna get you. All right. If you give him an opportunity, he's gonna get you. And if you run into him, you're not getting away. All right. He's like Velcro in that sense. He does a really good job of it. If he gets his hands on you, he got you. All right. Bloodlines. His uncle, Sione Pua, played in the league. You know, remember, he was a Jet for quite some time. So he's got bloodlines there. So he's a guy that you feel like could come in and be a productive NFL football player for you. You go to his cons. He's a 2-down run stuffer. I don't think he's going to provide you with any pass rushing ability whatsoever. He's a pocket collapser, so if he's in the game on a passing situation, he can collapse the pocket, but he's not going to, I don't think he's going to collapse the pocket to the point where he's running the guard into the quarterback and hence it's a sack, or he's collapsing the pocket to the point where the quarterback's not comfortable enough to deliver the football. I just think he's a 2-down run stuffer, to be honest with you. Doesn't use his hands well enough. If he could develop some hand usage, he could be a really difficult player to deal with inside on the interior of the defensive line. And then finally, age and fatigue. I think the reason he's a 7th round pick, because I think this guy's a 5th round nose. Like, you can, there's a place for a guy like Stevie T in this league as a 2-down run stuffing 3-4 nose in this league. There is a place for him in this league, but he's 26 years old. Okay, this is a guy that went to Utah to start his collegiate career. You know, when you go to those Mormon schools, you got to do a mission, and so he's a little bit older, and I think that scares some teams away. And then he's a guy that gets tired. So I think you know, again, 330 pounds. What am I really saying to you? So bottom line is, I think if he were 23 years old, he might have been a 5th round pick. But because he's 26 and you get one contract out of him and then you don't know what happens after that, teams are a little pushed, you know, a little apprehensive to pull the trigger on him. And all of a sudden now he's a 7th round pick. But nonetheless, I fully expect him to make this football team because you can use guys like this on your football team. In the 7th round, 223rd pick overall, USC defensive lineman Stevie Tui Kolovatu is a double to round out the Buccaneers draft. This was a really solid draft by the Bucs. Top heavy to me. The first 3 picks outstanding. The last 3 picks kind of meh for me. So really like what they did in this draft at the beginning. At the end, I wasn't in love with trading up. It's the 2nd year in a row I wasn't in love with the Buccaneers trading up and giving away draft picks later on in the draft that I felt like could have helped them and been beneficial to get players. Last year, we know we killed them for trading up to get the field goal kicker that struggled early in the season in Aguayo. This year, they trade up to get Kendall Beckwith. So in any event, let's tally up their score. You get a home run for O.J. Howard in the 1st round. You get 2 triples back-to-back in the 2nd and 3rd round picks in Justin Evans and Chris Godwin. You get a double in the last 3rd round pick of Beckwith, and you finish up the draft in the 5th and 7th round with 2 more doubles in McNichols and Stevie Tui Kolovatu. You total all that up, you get a doubles bonus for the 3 doubles. It gives you a total of 18 divided by the 6 picks. It's a triple right on the head for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the 2017 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. That's going to do it for the Buccaneers and their breakdown. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on the Louie T Network. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything in the National Football League. You guys, tell me who's next. I'll see who's next. We'll break that team down and we'll keep the trade rolling. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.